What's going on? Welcome to episode 3 of Just Be Real. If you haven't already, make sure that you check out my last 2 episodes. They were talking about my intro to my porn journey, how I discovered it, and then the last one talked about the side effects and the withdrawals that come from consuming porn. I wanted to talk about something a little different today, something that actually happened recently that I did. Let's just jump into it. So this episode, I wanted to talk about relapse. And if you are like me and you've basically been addicted for as long as you can remember, or you've only been addicted for a few years or a few months, you know that relapse is inevitable. I can't call this channel Just Be Real and not be real and upfront with you guys about everything. Yesterday, I relapsed, and it was a disappointing moment for me because I had gained all of this time in between. I think it was 6 weeks. 6 weeks without porn, 3 weeks without masturbation. And you always think that whenever you go back, that all of that just was in vain, and that you really come down hard on yourself. You start to feel guilty about, God, if I had just stayed together for a little bit longer, had I just seen this thing through, it's no telling where I would be. But this relapse was different than my other ones, and it was for a reason that I didn't know existed. For example, sometimes I've actually relapsed into porn when I was on the mountaintop, when I was happy, when I was feeling joyful, and when I felt like I was on cloud 9. Those are actually the times, coincidentally, that I would go back and watch porn, because I guess I felt so happy to be out of the situation, and I've gotten this time in between that I almost became prideful or got cocky, thinking that I could handle a relapse, because somehow we forget how horrible we feel whenever we do watch porn and whenever we do have to pick up the pieces and deal with the withdrawals and the side effects. Somehow when you made it, or you feel like you've made it, you just completely forget about all that. And that's normally the times that I have gone back. But this time, and of course, when you're depressed and all of that stuff, or you're stressed out, those are also triggers that can possibly lead to a relapse. But this time it had been 6 weeks, and I was not feeling those benefits and those almost what I call superpowers that you get after like a week or two. And I was like, these side effects are staying a lot longer than they normally are. And I was trying to do everything in my power that I could do. I was going to work, going to a couple of parties, pushing myself to do that kind of stuff. And just being out in general, because like I mentioned last time, it was hard for me to go out, and has been, because of my anxiety. But then when I noticed that I was doing all of that stuff and it just wasn't working at the timeline that I thought it was going to work, I was just like, well, what's the point? If it's been 6 weeks, it's been over a month since I've indulged in this thing. What's the point of going if that happiness or that joy or that feeling alive hasn't been restored yet? And so I just decided, I know what will bring me pleasure, and I know what will take that edge off, even though that's just a trick. Because we all know that when you go back and you relapse, you have to those same side effects are still going to play out in most cases, because you've opened up that door again. But I was fooled into thinking that, if I can just give myself, my brain, my body time to heal and keep doing those necessary things, and eventually it was going to all work out. But I didn't. In this instance, because I can tend to have this guilty ridden conscience, it was hard for me to tell my family, because I didn't know what their response was going to be. They have been praying with me, praying for me, fasting with me, staying at home with me, making sure that, my phone and everything is in a safe place, that it's with them at night. So I was really nervous to say it, but I knew because of past instances that if I didn't say it, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. And my parents are on vacation right now in Miami, and so that even added just more guilt to the fact that I had to kind of confess this while they're out there enjoying themselves on the beach. But they've always made it apparent and open to say, call me. I don't care where I'm at. I don't care if I'm in Greece. I don't care if I'm at the Colosseum in Rome. Call me whenever you need to. So I took that opportunity and did. And this time, their disappointment I could feel. And my mom, in all honesty, actually started crying. Because she's a woman that, like most mothers, they kind of have all the answers. But this time was a little different. And my mom has her own things going on, her own personal decisions and life choices that she has to make. But she's been in this with me for 16 years. So the disappointment wasn't just about me. It was just an accumulation of everything that she's had to deal with on top of this. And that hurt. And even though I don't have my own family yet, my own wife and kids that I could potentially lose to this, I wouldn't want to lose some of the closest people to me, and I wouldn't want to lose myself. So when she confessed, like, Jay, at this point, it's you that's doing this, and you're causing this hurt on yourself and on us, that woke me up. I immediately went upstairs and was like, God, I got on my knees and was just like, have mercy on me. Have mercy, give me your grace, because what it's doing to the people that I love the most is gut-wrenching for me. Because like I say, this relapse was different. The reasoning behind it was different. I had to come to grips with, it's me that's making this choice. I don't care what the reasoning is. Yes, that's valuable information as to why you did it, so that way you won't do it again. But it's all about a choice. If I've been in this for this long and I know that the brain can trick you, I know that what we consider in the Christian world, the enemy can come in with temptation. If I know that and I'm constantly making the same decision, but expecting a different result, like, that's insanity. That's the definition of insanity. And I can't keep going on this roller coaster, relapsing and thinking that, oh, this time is going to play out just like last time. Oh, at least in a week, I'll feel, my laughter coming back, or my social anxiety will start to diminish. I put myself on this timeline because in my mind, I'm like, well, I know that this is going to happen by the 7th day, or I know that this is going to happen by the 3rd week. And I got cocky with it. I got too prideful thinking that I had this thing in the bag, when really it was a farce. You don't have it like you think you do, and you need help. I was watching a sermon by T.D. Jakes a couple of days ago, and I didn't even make it 10 minutes into the sermon, and the whole sermon was about change and being willing to change and accepting change. And it's kind of hard when, as an addict, you've been used to this way of life, this way of living for so long, that change not only seems impossible at times, but it just seems like, well, what in the world am I going to do if I were to be in a place where I'm not an addict? It's like the most backwards, dysfunctional way of thinking, because that's all you want to do is be over this addiction, but then you don't know what's on the other side of that. So the sermon talked about, we would rather, I'm paraphrasing this, but it talks about how we would rather stay in a situation because we're familiar with it, even though it hurts, and even though it hurts the people around us. But because we're familiar with it, we've attached ourselves to it and have made life with it. And we really don't know anything outside of that. It's like being in a dysfunctional relationship. You'd rather stay in it, even though you know you don't deserve to be treated that way. But because you know that person and you're familiar with it, you've accepted it. Instead of weighing the option to say, even though I don't know what's on the other side of this addiction or this relationship, I would be willing to stay here rather than be uncomfortable for a little while. And for me, those 6 weeks were some of the most uncomfortable 6 weeks that I've ever been through. But what if it was just that 6 week and a day that things just kind of started to lift, but I didn't give myself that opportunity to allow my body or brain to take the time that it needed to get through it. I would rather forego a potential, breakthrough and just stay in a situation that I've known for 16 years. And it had me thinking about not just myself, but the amount of people that are behind this camera watching this video, how you have been in a situation that you're like, this is it for me. So I might as well just make peace with it and live with it, not knowing that on the other side of this is your freedom. So I just thought that was so amazing hearing that, because I needed it at the time that I heard it. It's rare that somebody has, been free from an addiction and they cut it off cold turkey and there were no side effects and no withdrawals, and they just kind of was just delivered from it, and then they've moved on and never went back. But those cases are rare. And if you're like me, you may have wanted to cut things off cold turkey, but something always pulls you back. And that's what we would consider to be a trigger. Because recovery is not linear. It is a journey full of mountaintops and valleys and highs and lows and happiness and disappointments. We can't expect to go on a journey like this and expect it to be one way. And because that leads to even more disappointment and frustration and even hopelessness, because you're putting this out there that this is how it's going to go, when really none of us knows how it's going to go. In recovery, the brain is always looking for homeostasis, like I talked about in the last video, about how our bodies and our brains want balance. And so if you've been doing something for so long and you try to get rid of it, it's going to kind of rock the boat and cause the withdrawals and the discomfort. But it's only temporary until it gets enough time, or whatever you would consider to be your, therapy or building new pathways. That kind of stuff takes time. So it's going to be uncomfortable for a little bit, but it's looking for balance. And once it's past, that rockiness, it's going to eventually get homeostasis without the porn in this instance. Because whatever the brain considers to be pleasurable, it is going to fight for that, and it's going to fight to keep it. So it's going to buck up because it doesn't want to change. It wants to stay where it has been because it's comfortable there and it has created life with that thing, whatever it is. But one thing we have to remember is that the brain is not in control. Our consciousness is in control, and our consciousness is able to tell the brain what to do. And our conscious thinking is able to put in the brain what it needs. The brain is just a reflection of whatever you put into it. It's a servant. It's there to serve us. It's there to do what we tell it to do. And so if we can consciously think about that life that we do want and hold that image, hold that vision, it's bound to happen, because your brain has to create pathways that will lead to that vision. That's why the Bible says without vision, you'll perish, because you won't have any direction. It even talks about, in I think, the book of James, where if you are a doubtful person, you're just like a wave in the sea, and you're just being, wherever the wind goes and wherever the wave goes, that's where you'll go. There's no foundation, there's no vision, there's no purpose. So you have to have that, and you have to instill that in your brain, or you will just keep falling backwards, relapsing, getting back up, because there's no foundation to stand on. The thing that we have to keep in mind the most during this journey, and it's what I have to constantly remind myself of, is what is your trigger? What is it that happens? And it can just be something small, or it could be something big that is causing you to go back. For me, is sleeping with my door shut. I still live with my family. I still live with my parents. And for some reason, when I get too much privacy, or for a long period of time, I'll start to think about doing that thing, because my phone is there, the door is shut. So it's just me and my thoughts and my imagination. And that's usually what will trigger me to go back. So after this relapse, I took the door off the hinges. And it's not even out of punishment and thinking that I don't deserve it, but I'm starting to see now that privacy is a luxury. It's not really a necessity, but it's something that I have taken full advantage of. The Bible says, if your right eye offends you, cut it out. So, and I'm not doing that, but I'm gonna cut off what needs to be cut off in order to gain my freedom. Another thing is having your phone on you. Like I say, the porn has become so accessible. It used to be a computer, and back then I actually took the computer out of the room and put it somewhere else, but now it's on your phone, it's on your device. So I've taken advantage of that. And so for the last, I want to say, month or two, I've been sleeping with that in my parents' room. I put it in there. So, because I know that if I were to go to sleep or wake up in the morning when I'm tempted the most, that's when I'll reach over and grab my phone almost subconsciously. And the more I started doing that, the more I wasn't even thinking about my phone the first thing in the morning. I would wake up and read the Bible. So because I took that right eye out and placed it somewhere else, I reached for something else that was more beneficial for me, which is the Word. And I've been getting so much more fulfillment, and my mornings start off way better than just reaching for my phone. It's not even really probably to watch porn, but to check your email, to check Instagram. It's not the first thing you should do in the morning. Some more triggers could be boredom, which is considered the devil's playground, feeling lonely and needing some companionship, maybe not even just romantic relationships, but friendships. For some people, driving down certain streets can be a trigger. So you want to avoid, take a different route, switch it up a little bit. If you're used to going one way home from work and you're passing down an alley of hookers, then you might not want to take that route. You might want to choose a different route. Ride with somebody, carpool with them to work, if that helps, because then you'll have that person with you, so where you won't, drive down certain streets or give in. I just joined another 12-step program, and I had gone to a couple of meetings a couple of years ago, and it was beneficial for me to be around people that struggled with the same thing. But some of these guys in here are like actual full-blown sex addicts, and some of them have bought hookers and slept with prostitutes. They have families. I think in this meeting I was the only porn addict, but most of them actually buy sex. It just showed me that porn could very well lead into something like that. I would only assume that there are certain streets, especially in Atlanta, where certain things go down, and to hear them talk about how they have to kind of avoid those areas or avoid going to the city altogether temporarily until they get stronger, it's just something that has to happen because it's a trigger for them. Some more things could be stress at work, relationship stress. It could be a number of things that could cause you to just be like, F this. I just want to feel good. I just want to take the edge off. I just want to feel some type of pleasure, even though it's temporary and potentially destructive, but you're willing to do it anyways. These are the type of things that they're tricks. They're tricks that come from, like I say, your brain or the enemy, or just because you have gotten too prideful with your progress that you somehow go back into this destructive habit that is literally taking over people's lives. So it's time to get honest with ourselves, and it's time to admit our shortcomings and reach out for help. Have people hold us accountable, for staying on track, helping us pick back up the pieces. Relapse is unfortunately inevitable for most people. So you're gonna relapse, but that's actually a good sign, because it shows that this habit that you're trying to break away from, you are doing whatever's in your means, using your willpower, that strength and that self-control to do it. And it's always there as a learning lesson and a tool to serve you, to show me what happened this time that caused me to go back, and how can I prevent it from happening again. That's what relapse is all about. Like I say, in most cases, that's how it happens. It's not just so much as I'm cutting this off cold turkey and never have to experience it again. Especially with porn and sex, we're sexual beings. So we're going to have urges, we're going to have desires. But I think one of the best ways to transmute those desires is to put that energy into something else that's more productive, something that's beneficial, that's going for a run, that's getting your heart rate and your cardiovascular system stronger, that's going to work out That's going to travel, to see new places, to open up your mind. When you create these new pathways in your brain, the old ones kind of automatically die off, because the more that they're not being used, the more that they're just going to basically disappear, because you're creating these new outlets and ways of living that are way better for you in the end. So that's what has helped me, and I have gone days without it. I've gone weeks. When I first got baptized, when I was 17 years old, I was called to it. I wasn't seeing nobody else around me get baptized. So I really felt like it was the pull of God pulling me closer to Him. And when I did that, I actually went, I want to say 7 or 8 months without porn. To go that long without watching porn, and it was like this automatic response. But then I remember what was happening that caused me to go back at that time. I had just enrolled in college. I went to Kennesaw State for about a semester, and I noticed that, I don't know if it was like the stress of the school or the stress of having to leave high school behind, which I loved my senior year. I had to kind of part ways with, all my friends and things like that, and make new friends. But that's kind of, I realized that August or September, I started watching again. And then depersonalization came in. The anxiety got really, really bad, to the point where I had to drop out. When I look back, I was like, that's what happened. Stressed out with school, stressed out with, a change of environment. But had I just, stayed the course, chose a different outlet, made new friends, maybe even joined a club or something, it's no telling what would have happened. In the end, I really didn't need college anyways. I'm just gonna put that out there. Still paying back a student loan just from that one semester. I want to leave a word of encouragement to say, relapses don't have to be your way of life. You don't have to constantly stay in a place where you're like on this roller coaster. You can get off. And I have seen and I've heard too many testimonies to know that there have been people that thought that this was going to be just the rest of their life, that they thought that this was just their fate, to live with this. But then they end up getting free from it, and now they have been 15, 20 years sober. I was reading, an article about Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man. Could you imagine the type of life that he was living before he became Iron Man? This dude was a heroin addict. They said that they saw him walking down some street, Ventura Boulevard, with no shoes on in LA. Almost like a crackhead, a straight up crackhead. And the fact that he has gone in and out of prison because of his drug charges and things like that, having to go in rehab, he made a comeback and became an Iron Man, and this man was on heroin and cocaine. When I read that, I was just ignited with so much empowerment and inspiration to say, if he can do it and become one of the greatest superheroes of our time, then why can't we? Why can't we gain that same type of power and live the life that we've always wanted? Yes, the relapse happened, and yes, I wanted to be upfront and honest with you guys. I immediately picked myself back up. I confessed it, and I do believe that when you do it, that there needs to be somebody to confess it to get it out of you, because you do feel like a weight has been lifted just from somebody else knowing about it. Or even if you journal it, you just got to get it out. And that's the start to a new beginning. All them weeks or days or months that you've had in between were not in vain. You have tapped back into your conscious mind to gain willpower and strength and self-control to stay away from something that has caused destruction and negative side effects. So that was not done in vain. That all was there to serve a purpose, and that is still within you and is still within me. Those 6 weeks were beneficial for me. Even though I didn't feel the joy or whatever that I wanted to initially, I still gained something from it. And I want you guys to know that you have gained something from the time that you've spent apart from it as well. So thank y'all for listening. Thank you for tuning in to episode 3. I'm going to continue to release these videos. Like I say, this is therapy for me, and hopefully you guys can gain some type of knowledge and learn from my mistakes like I made recently, so that way you don't have to fall in that same trap. I appreciate you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. The more subscribers I get, the more views I get, the more it will start to pop up on other people's recommendations. Thank you for sharing it, commenting, liking, all of that. and I'm gonna see y'all next time.